certainly another theme that has become recurring theme in recent years is Marlon Humphrey's unwavering confidence, Sarah, to recruit in free agency, or in this case, just straight up recruit. I don't believe I have to look at Micah's contract situation.
I got it.
You do? Okay.
In one of the slides coming up. Yep.
All right. We'll get to that in just a second. But as you can see on the screen, and for those of you who follow Marlon on Instagram, maybe this isn't news to you. And maybe, just maybe, this is Marlon putting on his elite level troll hat, which he tends to do in the offseason when he gets back on social media. But he tagged Micah Parsons at the Pro Bowl, and there's a video of him, and the caption says, Micah says he wants to come to the AFC. I know a team, with a bunch of eye emojis. So Marlon's in peak off-season form, I'd say. How about you?
Yeah, well, yes, Marlon Humphrey has been known to make lots of tweets like this. And his success rate as a social media recruiter isn't that high. It's not the best. So also he doesn't mind trolling people. He attributed that Micah Parsons says he wants to come to the AFC. What's funny, Bobby, is people who don't know Marlon Humphrey very well. I saw a story hit my timeline from one of the national kind of blog sites. Treating it so seriously, like it was news. Like Marlon Humphrey discloses that Micah Parsons wants to go to the AFC. And they're like, now we don't know that it's actually going to happen. Da, 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 da. And I was like, you guys don't know Marlon clearly and his games. But what is funny is last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago, I think it was while you were gone, Bobby, is when Marlon Humphrey came back to Twitter. He had a little fast during the season. When he came back, he tweeted on January 21st, I really forgot how toxic this app is. I love it here. Then Jermaine Illuminor, a former Raven offensive lineman, said, hey, I heard you wanted to come play in New York. Like, yeah, right. Like he wants to leave the Ravens to go to the Giants. No. The Giants were in contention for the worst record in the NFL this last year. So Micah, bringing sanity, quote retweets Jermaine, says, you're really pitching to someone who has Lamar? So I like on the surface, would Micah love to play with Lamar and the Ravens? I'm sure he would. Micah is not afraid to say stuff like that. But to your point, I kind of want to bring this into kind of like I'm gonna come to the salary cap here in just a minute. Obviously, we know about this. Where did it go? Did we move the slide on the Lucic? Here it is. Okay. So we all know over the weekend, even people who don't follow the NBA super closely, the sports world absolutely stunned when the Dallas Mavericks and the Lakers announced that the Mavericks were trading Luka Doncic to the Lakers for Anthony Davis and some other players in a first-round draft pick. And so Micah, who's obviously in Dallas and has gone to plenty of their games, says, yo, what WTF going on in Dallas? And one of his followers says, you're next. Have your bags packed. Okay, so Micah quote retweets that with about eight crying emoji faces. Okay. So, Bobby, I think both you and I know the chances of Micah being traded to the Ravens are almost as slim as what we discussed off the top of Myles Garrett being traded to the Ravens. Although this one, I'd give it a little bit more of a chance just because it would be NFC to the AFC. I just still have a hard time thinking the Browns would send him to the Ravens. But, right? You would agree? Like, this is pretty far-fetched, right?
Yeah, but if both are far-fetched, which they are, am I giving the edge to the NFC versus AFC? Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Agreed. Although I'm still not so confident in Marlon's recruiting abilities. But even though I think this is an absolute long shot, and I also think that Marlon is trolling to a great degree. If you wanted to ask me what's the best argument to say that it could happen is it's what you had brought up about his contract. So 2025, he is under contract, but 2026, he's going to be a free agent. And in 2025, his cap hit is $24 million. So even more than Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett just south of $20 million. The Dallas Cowboys have a recent history of not signing their stars until like the last minute. We saw it with Dak, CeeDee Lamb a little bit. And so maybe it's just one of those things where like, hey, we already paid Dak. We paid Lamb. We don't know if we can pay big money over here on the defensive side. And so maybe if we can't strike a deal, instead of losing you next year to being an unrestricted free agent, and the best we can get for you is like a 3rd round comp pick, you know, we'll go ahead and cut ties now and try to get a couple of future 1st rounders. So that could be the motivation if they were like feeling like they couldn't make all these big contracts work. So that would be the way for him to get out of Dallas. And then meanwhile, Bobby, because of the Luka Doncic trade, Dallas fans are like absolutely traumatized by the trade. Can't believe that he's gone. So of course, Bleacher Report makes them a little bit even more nervous and was like, what could be some other like Luka type trades in the NFL? And look what they propose. Right when Marlon's putting out all these little troll Instagram posts, they propose, this is Christopher Knox, that the Dallas Cowboys trade Micah Parsons to the Ravens, and in exchange, the Ravens give up Zay Flowers, first ever wide receiver Pro Bowler in Ravens history, Kyle Van Noy, which makes sense because they would need somebody, you know, rushing the quarterback if they're going to give up their Micah, and then a 2025 1st round pick. That's what they propose. Would you do that, Bobby? You got to give up Flowers, Kyle Van Noy, and a 1st round pick, and you got to take on it's $25 million, but it's the last year. You would probably have to, you would have to do a new long-term deal.
Mike is a future Hall of Famer, but that seems like far too much for me.
A little rich, right?
Yeah, but Sarah, this right here, this proposal from Bleacher Report is almost as ridiculous as Adam Schefter's tweet from over the weekend. Okay, this takes the cake. Schefter wanted to do a little bit of crossover, like many have done when it comes to, and we've already kind of alluded to it. What is the NFL equivalent? What's the NHL equivalent? What's MLB's equivalent? Right. So on and so forth.
Right.
Shefty decided to he thought he was going into his bag. Go to the tweet and go check out the comment section. I think
it's bad.
Okay. He thinks that the equivalent, the NFL equivalent of what we saw take place over the weekend, which I'm pretty comfortable saying in modern sports is the most surprising out of left field trade in the history of definitely the NBA and maybe across all the big 4 professional sports. He thinks that the NFL equivalent to sending Luka to LA for AD and other assets is the Ravens trading Lamar to Cincinnati in exchange for Joe Burrow and more in the middle of the season. And you decided to pull in just a couple of the, I'm sure, more professionally worded tweets in response to Adam. One is from @the_Farbod, who says this isn't even close. It's like the Ravens trading Lamar for Dak. And Spenny's like, no, it's Stafford for Burrow or Lamar.
Yeah.
All I know is this. Shefty's comp, not one of his more accurate tweets out there.
It's one of those where people are like, just stick to reporting what your sources are telling you rather than becoming like this analyst. I think Spenny's closest, Matthew Stafford for say like Lamar. because Stafford has a championship ring and he's on the older side. I think Aaron Rodgers might be a little too far on the aging side to compare to AD. Some people are like, well, no, it's a completely different position. So it'd be more like, it's like here in Baltimore, if we were saying Lamar needs a game wrecker on the other side on defense, right? And like either Micah or Myles Garrett is that game wrecker. So everybody in Baltimore is like, get a game wrecker, get a game wrecker, get a game wrecker to complement Lamar. But instead you trade Lamar for that game wrecker,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's kind of what it is. But I like the Stafford one if you're talking about, the same position. But if not, it might be more like a Myles Garrett or a Micah Parsons would be more legit. So then, of course, FanDuel takes it to another level and says, well, what if the Bengals and the Ravens did make a trade between Lamar and Burrow? And so they put up Ravens receive Joe Burrow, and then then the Bengals get Lamar and a 6th-round pick. Are they trying to say that Burrow's of more value than Lamar by adding a 6th-rounder? He's of more value by a 6th-round pick? I don't think the Bengals or the Ravens would do that and just betray their quarterbacks. And I think both fan bases, because they're so bought into their current quarterbacks, I think the majority of both fan bases would revolt.
Yes. This is FanDuel kills me when they do this stuff. They know what they're doing, right? And there's so much conversation that transpires as a result. If I could for a second get back to what you brought in here from over the weekend, just because I know there's been a lot of chatter about this. Speaking of crossover, I think sports fans across the globe kind of have been locked into this. Luka Doncic turns 26 at the end of this month.
Yeah.
The Los Angeles Lakers not only just pulled off a no-brainer move. If you're Rob Pelinka, you didn't have to blink. You didn't have to blink when Dallas called you up and asked about this. But for LA, big picture, the post-LeBron era has now been solidified. Luka can spend the next 15 years of his career as a Laker. And so they have now successfully gone from the Kobe years to the LeBron years to the Luka years.
Well, successful, you're right about the first two. But successfully going into Luka, we're all projecting it'll be successful, and it very well could. But we don't know yet. Because the whole debate is, why would you give up a guy like this that's in his prime, right? And nobody saw it coming. That you were like, I'm not spending $350 million over the next 5 years on this guy. So everybody is like, what do the Mavs know that nobody else does? And most people are speculating. In fact, Charles Barkley was hilarious on Get Up this morning. He's like, when I got to the NBA, I was like, why don't people want? He didn't get drafted as high as he wanted. So he goes to an NBA star. He's like, hey, can I talk to you to get some advice? And he's like, Charles, it's because you're fat and lazy. Like, that's what he told Barkley. And Charles was like, that was the thing I needed to hear. Like, I needed to hear that's why I wasn't wanted, is because he's like, I could get away. Again, this is his words. He's like, I could get away with being fat in high school and still dominate. And I could get away with being fat in college and still dominate. And maybe to a certain extent, I could get away with it in the NBA. But if I wanted to be great, I had to not be so lazy and I had to get my body in shape. So point being, Bobby, you might be right that it could be a successful transition. But it just has me thinking, like, why? Why was somebody with these numbers off to as great of a start? What do you know that the rest of us don't know?
Man, he just brought him to the finals last year. He made an NBA Finals appearance, and he's not even going to have a chance to defend that as a Dallas Maverick. And he's viewed pretty much universally, even though he's only been around for 5 or 6 years in the NBA, as the second greatest Dallas Maverick of all time. And we all know, those of us who followed the NBA for years, who's first. That would be one Dirk Nowitzki. So to me, if I'm a betting man, I think the influence of
Bobby, I think you might be frozen, or I'm frozen. Who's frozen here? You guys let us know in the chat.
Of course it's me, because
Oh.
everything decided to just plummet today, right? I mean, why wouldn't that be the case?
Whatever, dude. I look at me. Look what I'm on 2 different screens, one for audio and one on my phone, so it could have been me.
Those days where you just kind of just keep moving. Just keep moving.
Yeah.
Sarah's
Hey,
computer
keep
decided
fighting.
my connectivity is going in and out. There's a shower leak I got my landlord drilling holes in the wall off the side of me right now. So yeah, life is just, and I'm walking around with mono and about to give it to the entire city of New Orleans. So
Wait, you have mono now?
No, but I just,
Oh,
it makes it, I feel like the Buffalo Plague. That's what I have. I'm going to go bring the Buffalo Plague to New Orleans, and
Listen.
I apologize in advance to Louisiana.
Oh boy. You are on the up and up. You're better than you were last week.
Unbelievable. To finish that point, if I'm a betting man, I'm betting on LeBron's influence cleaning up whatever it is that needs to be tidied up with Luka, whether that's his offseason discipline, whether that's his nutrition regimen, whatever that might be, conditioning. And I think that Luka will be the next great Laker. And yet, look what they have to decide on while these two are teammates, though. In the short term, it's 2 ball dominant guys. Offenses are built around each one of these players, in LeBron and in Luka. And so how will that work in the short term? That's what I'm really curious on.
Yeah.
And obviously,
will LeBron want to get traded? Who knows?
Will LeBron finish his career as a Laker, and will it work as 2 ball dominant players? They still need a center. They need to bring in a center before the deadline. But the reason why we obviously brought this up was because it dominated every single sports headline all weekend long, and even beginning this week. So,
well, we brought it up for that, but also because of the comparisons, the NFL comparisons, and because Mike is like joking about getting traded himself, and because Marlon Humphrey was trying to try to recruit him. So it was like all this perfect storm that it actually is Ravens related.
There you go. Yeah, the NFL comps have been endless. Everybody wants a piece of the pie here.